Good evening and welcome to ITV News Meridian.
Tonight's headlines in the south. Southern Health under fire. The trust is blasted for creating a new, highly paid job for its former chief executive, and families demand answers.
Why has she been given another job? Why is she still receiving a salary? It's unbelievable.
Off the trains and back on the picket line. Another strike on Southern Rail leaves thousands of passengers stranded.
Keeping up with his sister, how TJ's new running blade means his sights are now firmly set on the Paralympics of the future.
And he came, he saw, he conquered. How Caesar, the police horse, is spending his retirement. Good evening. Katrina Percy may have stepped down as chief executive, but the controversy surrounding Southern Health appears to be far from over.
It's emerged that the Mental Health Trust did not advertise Ms Percy's new role, which will allow her to keep her £240,000 a year salary.
Well, it's a decision which has been heavily criticised by a former health secretary and by the families whose loved ones were let down by the organisation.
Among them, Angie Moat, whose mother died last year. She says she still wants answers. Richard Slee reports.
Angie Moat still wants to know why her mother died while in the supposed care of Southern Health NHS Trust. 74-year-old Marion was a former nurse at Southampton General Hospital and also a keen cyclist. She was found dead on the M27 after suffering a severe mental breakdown last November. Angie blames the trust for failing her mother and was pleased that Katrina Percy stood down as chief executive. But then she was shocked to hear she'd been re-employed as an expert consultant on the same pay, £240,000 a year.
Why has she been given another job? Why is she still receiving a salary? It's unbelievable, and this cannot be allowed to happen. Not when so many people have died.
During last night's meeting, held away from the cameras, the interim chairman of the trust, Tim Smart, justified the reappointment of Katrina Percy by saying she was uniquely qualified for her new role, for which she was the only candidate and which was not advertised. Mr Smart also explained how the trust was improving its services, although Angie wasn't impressed by what she heard.
It doesn't change what we've been through, and sitting in there, quite frankly, I just felt physically sick, hearing how they're going to improve things with families. That's not what we've experienced.
Last December, an independent investigation found that Southern Health had failed to investigate the deaths of hundreds of people since 2011. In April, inspectors concluded the trust was still failing to protect patients from risk of harm. One of the more outspoken public governors of the trust is surprised that Katrina Percy was offered a new role in the organisation.
I'm told she's ideally suited, but I've seen no evidence one way or the other, and the Council of Governors have not been consulted on this.
And one former health minister also wonders how Ms Percy has managed to maintain such a lucrative position at Southern Health.
To cling on with a job that is so highly paid, £250,000 package there, nearly that, just seems to me to be extraordinary.
Angie has lost all faith in the management of the trust and believes the current investigations and inquiries are failing to reveal what really happened. So now she's calling for a public inquiry. Richard Slee, ITV News.
£10,000 has been stolen from a security van outside a building society in Hampshire. 3 men took the money and left the area outside Nationwide in Totton in a silver car. Nobody was injured.
A drug dealer from Bournemouth has been jailed for 4 years. Kevin Wilmot, who's 30, pleaded guilty to possession of heroin and crack cocaine with intent to supply.
Festival goers heading to Bestival on the Isle of Wight this weekend are being reminded they'll be made to leave the site and banned from returning if they're found with drugs or psychoactive substances. Traffic is expected to be busy on the island from tomorrow as people start arriving.
Another day, another strike by Southern Rail staff. Today's action is the latest in a series of walkouts since April in an ongoing row over the role of guards on trains.
Well, only 60% of the company's services are running today and tomorrow.
All southern trains have been cancelled between Southampton Central and Havant. Other trains are operating on that route, but they've been busy.
Between Chichester and Eastbourne, there is a significantly reduced service, and east of Red Hill, there are no trains running at all.
It is, of course, affecting hundreds of thousands of passengers, and the dispute shows no sign of being resolved anytime soon. Malcolm Shaw reports.
The RMT union claims there was solid support for today's strike among its members. This picket line in Brighton, one of many outside stations across the region. Conductors are fighting changes they say will lead to driver-only trains.
These lads and lasses behind me, their actions are to protect the public. It may not seem like that today when it's frustrating this train service is being cancelled, but ultimately that's what it's about. It's ensuring that for the ticket prices they pay, for the service they should demand and expect, that it's a safe and welcoming journey.
This is day one of a two-day strike. Southern says it managed to run around 60% of services and condemned the industrial action as pointless.
We need to move on from talking with the RMT, and we need to bring these plans into place because modernisation is so desperately needed on the railway, and the customers deserve better than they've got at the moment.
The dispute has rumbled on for months. Passengers left wondering just when the service will get back to normal.
Some people have to go to work in London and they have to go by the train, so they'll be late at work.
It takes longer to drive, so you just have to put up with it.
I'm sick of being late on the trains, don't really know who to blame, don't really know what side to back.
There was some good news for passengers. Seaford was left with almost no trains when the emergency timetable kicked in 2 months ago, but hourly trains will start running again in 3 weeks' time and a full timetable in late October.
Obviously the dispute is ongoing, but I'm optimistic that we will get a resolution to that. But the bigger issue for my constituents is long-term performance. They pay a lot of money for their season tickets and they deserve a better service.
Last week, the government announced it was creating a fund of £20 million to tackle the continuing chaos on Southern, and it promised to bang heads together. With no fresh talks planned, the two sides seem as far apart as ever. Commuters still caught in the middle of this apparently intractable dispute. Malcolm Shaw, ITV News, Brighton.
Speculation is rife that the government will repeal 40-year-old laws banning the setting up of new grammar schools within weeks. It follows the citing of a confidential document yesterday.
The Prime Minister, Theresa May, went to a grammar school for part of her education, and she's backed the idea of a grammar school expanding in her Berkshire constituency.
But as the academic year gets underway, the latest developments are igniting old arguments about a two-tier education system. With more, here's our social affairs correspondent, Christine Alsford.
Next one.
Thousands of pupils sit the 11+ exam every year in the hope of winning a place at one of the remaining 163 grammars across the country. But will there soon be many more schools like this to choose from? From the moment the new Prime Minister entered Downing Street, the murmurings began that she was considering making it possible to open new schools that select on the basis of academic ability. Yesterday, this memo, spotted in the hands of a civil servant, added fuel to that fire.
The thing it told us that we already knew was that the government is looking at lifting the ban on grammar schools, and that's hugely encouraging. We're optimistic that they will at least give it a fair hearing.
Moving away from the past and allowing brand new grammars under certain conditions is being welcomed by some parents.
The grammar system simply enables those who are perhaps better able or performing better at school to be given the opportunity to study at a certain level and, to be given a leg up in life.
The constant criticism is that that leg up in life is only available to those who can afford to pay for expensive private tuition to pass the exam to get in. Yet the view of some is allowing more grammars will help end all that.
Parents want grammar schools, they're really popular, they're really oversubscribed, they are full of middle class children, but that is because there aren't enough places for all the children who want one. If there were more places, there'd be more places available for those who haven't got sharp elbows to get in.
A selective school system was first brought in back in 1944, but after most parts of the country moved over to a comprehensive education, completely new grammars were banned. So in recent years, the only way to increase the number of grammar places has been to expand and extend grammars that already exist. These families are fighting proposals for a grammar expansion in their town and say selective education is divisive and unnecessary.
I thought that was something that people did 50 years ago, and we're going to go back in time, and it's going to really damage our country's prospects for the future.
They take academically bright and able children and they churn out academically bright and able children with good results. Those children would get good results in a comprehensive school. The 85% of children who don't get the opportunity to go to a grammar school are the people who I think we should be focusing on more.
As yet, there's no detail on what conditions any potential new grammars would have to meet, but it's thought they would definitely need to perform far better than many of the existing ones on admitting pupils from more disadvantaged backgrounds and transforming their life chances. Christine Osford, ITV News.
You're watching ITV News here in the Meridian region. Coming up, we'll have all the latest weather with Joe Blythe, plus
Surviving by a whisker. How Sparky the ginger tabby brings a whole new meaning to a purring engine.
And for more on all of our stories, you can head to our website, itv.com/Meridian. Any views or news, you can give us a call on this number, and it is 0808 1010 095. That's 0808 1010 095. Or get in touch via Facebook or send us a tweet at ITV Meridian.
Now, an ITV survey's revealed that many new mothers who are severely ill with a postnatal illness are being denied the chance to have treatment at a specialist mother and baby unit.
Well, the NHS has admitted there is a lack of help for women in large parts of the country. In the final part of our Keeping Mum series, one mother says she was on the brink of suicide after becoming victim to this postcode lottery scandal. With more, Victoria Davis.
It was after a traumatic birth that Rachel Anning became unwell. Memories of nearly losing her baby triggered post-traumatic stress disorder, followed by anxiety, postnatal depression, and eventually psychosis.
I really loved Lily, but I almost felt like I loved her too much because I was so frightened of things happening to her that then it started to get out of perspective. So I was convinced that there was cameras in my house and that someone was going to abduct Lily. Everyone was a suspect. I even thought my own partner, my family, everyone. So for about 4 days, I didn't go to sleep. I didn't take my eyes off her. I didn't go and have a bath, or I literally just watched her for the whole 4 days because I was so terrified that someone was going to take her. That was when I realised I needed to get away from my own thoughts because I couldn't take this anymore. I even thought about putting my head on a train track because I thought that was the only way that all the thoughts would stop.
Rachel and her baby were finally referred to a specialist mental health facility known as a mother and baby unit. But not all women receive this help.
Services are provided in an ad hoc fashion. So we know that whilst there are many centres of excellence across England, there are huge deserts across the country where there are not sufficient services, and we know that we need to start to fill those gaps.
For mothers in need, getting the right treatment is a postcode lottery, where currently thousands of vulnerable women are being left without support.
In a survey commissioned by ITV and the perinatal mental health charity Pandas, a quarter of women said they'd have gone to a mother and baby unit if they'd been offered a space. But shockingly, NHS figures show that 43% of trusts provide no specialised maternal mental health service. And those areas that do have a service, only a third meet the recommended standards.
If we liken it to physical health, it's like saying there's no cancer specialist in your area. Well, actually, that's just not good enough. It's not good enough just to get general care. These women need very specialist support at this time.
When Rachel returned home, she was shocked by the lack of help.
I sent over 30 emails, phone calls, different things to as many services that I could think of. Every response I got back sort of echoed the same message, that I was in the wrong postcode, that I didn't meet the criteria. You know, I'm lucky that I've managed to get through mine without taking drastic action. I was so close to the brink of just ending it all because I didn't know how else I was going to manage. So it would be so tragic for newborn babies to lose their mothers for something which they could get help for and could be better.
Sadly, hundreds of women in our survey had similar stories.
It took months to get help, and even then it wasn't great. It felt like a postcode lottery.
There's still a lack of awareness surrounding this. When I first confided in my partner, he said I shouldn't seek help in case the baby was taken away.
People still tell you it's a lack of sleep and all will be fine. There needs to be more mother and baby units. So many would benefit, but there aren't enough spaces.
NHS England is aware of the problem. It's announced £365 million of funding over the next 5 years to expand perinatal mental health services. It's hoped this will lead to more mother and baby units, extra beds and more community support. But Rachel says more still needs to be done to finally end this postcode lottery scandal. Victoria Davis, ITV News.
Well, as we saw in our report there, more money and resources are being ploughed into helping new mums suffering from postnatal depression.
We're pleased to say one of the country's leading consultants who's helping spearhead that change is Dr. Alan Gregoire from the University of Southampton. He's with us now. Dr. Gregoire, is there still a stigma attached to postnatal depression that perhaps stops women coming forward?
Yes, there is. There's a very negative view of mental health and mental health problems generally, and we really need to change that as a society. And women are reluctant to talk about their mental health problems in a way that they aren't about their physical health problems. So that's really important that we change that.
What kind of help and advice do you offer mums?
So women, both before they even plan to get pregnant and during the pregnancy and postnatally, need information about their mental health and need the professionals who they're seeing, midwives, health visitors, GPs, and people working in the more specialised mental health services to be aware of their needs and to be there to listen to any difficulties or concerns they may be having.
You say don't wait till you've given birth. You should be getting advice during your pregnancy.
Absolutely, and particularly if you've experienced mental health problems in the past, that does put you at a slightly higher risk of experiencing them during the pregnancy or postnatally. So get help and advice and plan how you're going to get the support you need during the course of your pregnancy.
And we heard in our report that the NHS is spending more money on helping mums. Is that enough, do you think?
It's a very, very important start to getting a better package of support, but it's still a drop in the ocean compared to what is spent on physical health during pregnancy and postnatally. So yes, it will help women who have the most severe difficulties with their mental health, and it will give them, women throughout the country, better access to specialised services. But we also need GPs, midwives and health visitors to be more aware and better able to support women at this time.
Dr. Alan Gregoire, thank you so much for talking to us.
Well, there's plenty more advice, help and symptoms of postnatal depression on our website. Go to itv.com/Meridian, the address on the screen there.
A charity that helps migrants says it doesn't expect the number of asylum seekers to fall in the near future, even if changes to immigration rules are made following Britain's vote to leave the EU.
The number of people applying for asylum in this country is at its highest for 5 years. In May, 28 suspected illegal immigrants, all from Africa, were found in the back of a refrigeration lorry in Portsmouth. And last October, 15 men were arrested in Oxfordshire after being found in a lorry on the M40.
Our reporter Kevin Ashford has been speaking to migrants who've risked their lives to get to this country.
It's a divisive issue. Just how to respond to the hundreds of thousands of people leaving their home countries, trying to start new lives. People with sometimes harrowing stories to tell. One Albanian couple, who are both now seeking asylum here, paid £6,000 each to be smuggled in the back of a lorry from Belgium to Britain. The woman, who doesn't want to be identified, was fleeing violence from a previous relationship and was heavily pregnant when she made the trip. Her partner had had death threats in a separate dispute.
What was that journey like?
It's just silence for hours, sleepless, and like I said, it's cold, very cold. And me as a woman and like a pregnant with a baby, it's just hard.
We're thinking and we're wishing to start living a normal life like everybody else, you know, to have a freedom, and because we're humans too.
Another migrant, too frightened to be identified, flew into Britain legally from Lebanon before seeking asylum. He was left disabled after being shot in a politically motivated attack 8 years ago. He was shot at again earlier this year.
It scared me so much, so I couldn't handle being shot a third time, definitely. And the way I was threatened, he told me, third time you're not gonna be alive.
A charity that works with vulnerable migrants says it doesn't expect its workload to decrease, even if immigration rules are changed following the vote for Brexit.
People seeking help from the better off countries isn't going to go away. And there is a problem there. It's a problem that needs resolving by the international community. And those that come here, of course, will help them, and the government will help them. And I'm sure of the 6,000 or so that arrived in Italy last week, a good few of those will end up somehow in this country.
Asylum applications in the UK have been increasing in recent years. The latest figures from the Home Office show that in the 12 months up to the end of June, there were more than 36,000 of them. That's a 40% increase on the previous year. However, an application doesn't guarantee that asylum will be granted. In fact, fewer than 4 in every 10 applications last year were successful. The Home Office says it tries to rule on straightforward asylum claims within 6 months, although the wait for a decision can be longer in more complicated cases. Kevin Ashford, ITV News.
An 11-year-old boy from Hampshire has just been fitted with the sort of blade we'll see in use throughout the Paralympic Games in Rio.
TJ Stayner's first aim was to beat his sister in a running race, but he's a very keen sportsman and hopes that one day he'll be able to compete at the highest level. Here's Richard Jones.
When sports-mad TJ Stayner was born, doctors discovered that his right foot hadn't developed properly, and the decision was made to amputate it. Until now, he's used a conventional prosthetic leg to walk, and he's already achieved a lot.
The doctors said I would not be able to stand or walk, and I've proved them wrong.
His conventional leg was fine for walking, but not for sport. So his mum asked the centre where he's treated if he could have a blade. It's unusual for children so young to have one because they're expensive, but a charity helped with funding. He's had it since July and he hasn't looked back.
Sometimes people just need to be given the chance, and I think devices like the running blade for people as active as that, it may inspire him to do that little bit more. Although I don't know how you can inspire TJ to do that much more. He plays football, he's just so active, so to be able to give him something that enables him to really take that on is fantastic.
Now he can swap between his walking leg and his running blade. He plays football, volleyball, and has his eyes on lots of other sports.
His other leg he would end up tripping over, and it was quite heavy, and he tended to run with his foot at an awkward angle, whereas now he's able to run more with a more smooth action than what he could do before, which has given him the ability to go faster.
His blade also means he can take on his younger sister in running races and finally win. Before TJ got his blade, what would have happened in a race like that?
It would either been Casey would win or we would draw.
And now?
I win.
All the time?
Yeah.
And there's no doubt blades are quite cool.
He's already informed me that he's wearing it to school on the first day of school because he starts secondary school, so what better way to introduce yourself to everybody new.
TJ will be watching the Paralympics to see what other sports are now open to him. And one day he hopes he could even be representing Team GB on the biggest stage of them all. Richard Jones, ITV News.
Brilliant. The winning TJ Stainer. What a great name. I'm sure we'll hear it in the future. Now, Thames Valley Police's most formidable officer has hung up his uniform for the last time and has just begun his retirement. Caesar, who stands at a whopping 18 hands and weighs a ton, has spent almost 11 years with the force.
During that time, he's protected the Queen at Royal Ascot, calmed football crowds and been at the centre of political demonstrations, as Kate Bunkle reports.
Is that nice?
Today, Caesar has a visit from an old colleague come to see how retirement is treating him. Sergeant Spencer Kirvin worked with Caesar for the final 3 years of his career with Thames Valley Police.
A lot of people think that police horses are supposed to be intimidating. He's intimidating because of his size, but not of his nature. He's a very, very gentle giant. That said, he's one of the bravest horses that Thames Valley have ever had. He will go into anything.
Caesar joined Thames Valley Police almost 11 years ago and proved himself to be one of the best the force has ever seen. This is him in the bottom right-hand corner of the shot on ceremonial duty at Royal Ascot. Last month, at the ripe old age of 15, he finally took off his saddle for the last time before moving to his new home at the Horse Trust in Buckinghamshire.
After many years of walking on tarmac and concrete streets and keeping the peace and being brave, here really all he has to do is mooch about, eat, enjoy himself, be petted. But he has already taken over as boss of his field, so old habits die hard.
He shares his new field with a fairly distinguished crowd, mainly retired military horses.
Caesar is a Thames Valley Police legend. In 10 years of service, he's worked right across the Meridian region. He's protected the Queen on countless occasions, calmed football crowds, dealt with far-right demonstrations. So he's earned himself a lovely, peaceful retirement.
But he won't lose touch with his former colleague. Sergeant Kirvin has decided to sponsor Caesar to help pay for his new life and, most importantly, to keep him stocked up on his favourite snack, strawberries. Kate Bunkle, ITV News, Princess Risborough.
Brilliant.
Strawberries, very lucky horse.
Healthy horse.
Another happy ending now. A tabby cat has definitely lost one of his 9 lives after being found trapped under the bonnet of a van in Reading.
The ginger cat, nicknamed Sparky, had to be coaxed out from behind the engine of a broken-down van on London Road after being spotted by a passer-by. It's thought he got into the vehicle 60 miles away in the White Hart Lane area of Tottenham, probably heading for the Royals. RSPCA officers say it's amazing he survived what must have been a terrifying journey.
But he looks none the worse for his ordeal. Good news tonight, officers say they've tracked down Sparky's owner and they will be reunited at the weekend.
Oh, I wanted Sparky to stay in Reading. Well, let's get all the weather details now. Here's Joe Blythe.
From blizzards to pool, driving through Europe. Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Hello again, good evening. Some really warm sunshine across the region today. Tomorrow, more sunshine on offer, but certainly more cloud around and the risk of some drizzle here and there. A slightly fresher feel to our weather as we head through the rest of the week, but tomorrow just about holding on to some warm temperatures. Humid air from the continent gradually being replaced over the next few days by an Atlantic flow, and by the weekend, well, a deep low Friday night into Saturday will bring some heavy rain. But back to the here and now, and this evening it's quiet, settled, clear and dry. There may be the odd rogue mist patch before dawn. Other than that, not quite as uncomfortable as previous nights, 15, 16 Celsius away from towns. On to tomorrow morning, there will be a little bit more cloud around than today. But that said, still some sunshine around. Through the middle part of the day, a cold front will move eastwards across the region. It's very weak and will only serve to give us more cloud and maybe a little bit of drizzle before things brighten up again from the west during the afternoon. A fine evening and warm again during the day, 24 or 25 degrees. Bye-bye.
Eurotunnel the Shuttle sponsors ITV Meridian weather.
Some good news for you. Fred's back tomorrow at last after the longest ever summer holiday.
Well, he deserves it.
No, he does, absolutely.
In just a moment, we've got the ITV Evening News with Mark Austin and Mary Nightingale. I've got your late news at 10:25. But as Phil says, Fred and I will see you here tomorrow. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
Bye for now.